Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to our weekly recap video. So it's been a really busy week for us. Erin and I just got home really late last night from the Great Big Home and Garden Show in Cleveland, Ohio, and it was an amazing time. We did 3 presentations, 3 meet and greets. A ton of you guys came out, and it was just such an encouraging time for us. It always is when we get to meet you guys face to face and talk with you and learn how our videos have been helpful. It's really validating and encouraging. So I just wanted to thank those of you who came out, and it was inspiring too. Like, we got to see a bunch of beautiful plants and a bunch of neat stuff. So anyway, I did want to mention that there are 4 other shows we will be going to this year. They are in Seattle, Boise, Boston, and Michigan. All of the information for all of these shows are on our website. The next event is in Seattle on February 29th and March 1st are the 2 days we will be at the Northwest Flower and Garden Festival. All right guys, so I just need to cut in for a quick second because when we filmed this video this morning, I forgot to mention any of you who are planning on going to the show in Seattle, if you're wearing any piece of our Garden Answer merchandise, you can go to the Proven Winners booth and your name will be entered in to a drawing for a $100 Proven Winners gift certificate. So just wanted to make sure you knew that. So if you've got a hat or a sweatshirt or a t-shirt or whatever, make sure you're wearing it. It's also fun to see the camaraderie that goes on when you see other people that are wearing the merch because you instantly have something in common with somebody else there. It's a really cool thing. So anyway, just wanted to let you know. So let's just get into last week's video, starting with the Hot Wheels miniature garden. And that was just a super fun project. It was one of those kind of like on a whim, I want to put together a little garden that incorporates some of Benjamin's favorite toys. And there's a little water feature and there's a concrete road and a tunnel, and really not a type of garden that I can set a 2-year-old loose with because, you know, with all the infrastructure of all those things, but he has really been enjoying it. So it's super awesome. So first question's from Laura. What are those big scissors you use to cut up the popsicle sticks, and where do I find that tubing you use to make the water feature? So I did look up the proper name of these cutters because they are awesome. I've used them so much around here. They're called Fiskars Pro Power Arc Easy Action Aluminum Tin Snips. So they cut metal, but I use them for all kinds of things that are just tough to cut. We will link them down below. The tubing you can usually find at anywhere that carries pond supplies. Like I get the tubing at my parents' garden center. So anywhere, or maybe like even aquarium equipment, because it's really little tubing and it's usually attached to the type of pumps that you can get for aquariums. 3 and 2 Art says, can you do a video on the differences between all the mosses you use? You always seem to have just the right moss for each project. It took me a long time to get my arsenal of mosses put together. They're mostly all from Super Moss. So you could probably look up Super Moss online. In fact, we'll try to see if we can link it down below. And they've just got so many different neat mosses. There's always projects where I just find like I need a little bit of this or that just to make just the difference in how it looks, and it's just really nice to have all of them on hand. So we will try to link a Super Moss down below, otherwise we can add that to our video list. Elizabeth says, do you just dream these up in your head and then go make them? Yes, most of the time. Venus says, do you ever reuse your Shapecrete creations in other mini projects? I don't usually, because they're usually so specific to that project that when I'm done with it, and Shapecrete is so easy to use, I just usually toss the pieces that I don't need anymore, because the next time I do a garden, I'm gonna wanna do it different anyway. Twinkle said, I was wondering if we can make the road more dark, like more black, tar color. And I was actually thinking about that as well. As I was taking pictures of it, it's really hard when you've got things in an arrangement that are really sharply contrasted. If you've got things that are really dark and then things that are really bright, to get the lighting just right for me, who I'm not a professional photographer, is really rough. But I do think that if I would have made the road darker, it would have been harder to distinguish. Like it wouldn't have, not harder to distinguish, but it wouldn't have shown as much as it did. And I think that because that's what the garden was about, was the road, that it was kind of good that it like kind of popped out of the arrangement. But Shapecrete does sell pigments that you can put into your Shapecrete as you're mixing it, and you can make it whatever color you want. And I think they do have one that's charcoal. Sarah said, when filling up the pond, did I spy an actual hose in your indoor plant room? Yes. So it's a super classy process. When I water in my plant room, I have a hose up there, like an actual garden hose. I open the window and I sling it out the window. It's in our 2nd story, and the hose goes down and hooks to a hose outside. That's a frost-free hose, so I have live water in it all year round. I have so many plants in that room that it is just, I, for a while, watered just with watering cans, and I'd come down here, fill them both up, traipse up the stairs, and I'd have to go up and down so many times. I just thought, I got to figure out something different here. I either need to get water plumbed into this room, or I'm just going to sling a hose out for a little while. And it works really well, actually. Melanie said, could you tell us where you get your planter pots? That particular container I got at my parents' garden center, that was a custom made. It was just by a local guy. And all of the time we get people that show up down at the garden center that are artists that create things, and they'll have their whole truck or a trailer full of beautiful things that they've made, and they'll kind of spread it out for us, and we will just hand pick items. So that happens quite often, and I think that container, that low square container, was one of those. But I get a lot of containers there. I get a lot of containers like at Marshall's and TJ Maxx, excuse me, Joann's, at thrift stores. I mean, you can, if you are kind of thinking, I'm always thinking what I can use as a container. And if you have that mindset, you can find stuff everywhere. The second video this week was a winter carrot harvest and making of a carrot cake. And in that video, I just showed you how I was digging out my carrots. I mean, beginning of February, still harvesting carrots, which is incredible in and of itself. But then I was able to take them inside and make a really yummy carrot cake that totally didn't turn out pretty, but it was super, super tasty. And it was a really fun video to make. First off, Meredith said the first 30 seconds was just black screen, just a heads up. So somehow in the upload process, I don't want to blame anybody here, but it was Aaron accidentally muted the first 30 seconds. Is that the proper term? Yeah. He accidentally muted the first 30 seconds. And we typically have those videos like scheduled to go out way before we wake up because we stay up really late at night. And so anyway, I think it was up for like 2.5 hours before we realized that the first 30 seconds was black. So we do apologize for the technical difficulties, Aaron. James said, what's the name of the carrots you grew? Okay, let me look up, hold on. We will put the name of the variety of carrots up on the screen because I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce it. And I think that was the first time, maybe the second time I had grown that specific variety. And they are really, really wonderful carrots. Kim said, how comfortable does your mom feel being on camera? She's actually a lot more comfortable than she used to be. I remember when we very first started making videos, well, I was uncomfortable in front of the camera too for a long time. And there's still moments where it's not like the most comfortable thing, especially when we're out in public and I'm holding my vlog camera and talking to the camera and people are like, I just did that in the airport yesterday. People just stare at you kind of funny, but I think it's becoming a little bit more normal because I think there's a lot more of that that's going on now. So anyway, my mom in the very beginning, I told her that you need to stop looking so worried because she looked very worried in a lot of the pictures or a video that we took of her. And now it's just like second nature. If I have a camera around, she's totally fine, which is awesome. Kim said, do you need to pay to join the channel before you can see the full recipe to print? No, you should be able to find the recipe, not should be able to. You will be able to find the recipe in the description right below the video. And we try to include as much detail about whatever I'm using or making or whatever in the description of each video. So we'll either have a link, like I think we just had a link to that recipe because it's somebody else's recipe that I just adjust slightly, or I will have it fully typed out down there. Either way, you should be able to find it. There is an option to join our channel, in which case, I mean, you're still seeing all the same videos, but we do post a little extra like behind the scenes stuff if you are a member. And the last question on that video was from Queen D. How do you keep the cat from pooping in your flower or garden bed? My neighbors feed strays and they come to my garden bed to use the bathroom. That's super frustrating. I fortunately don't have any problems or issues with my cats. In the past, I've used Bonide's Go Away and Repels All, and they've worked really well for me. That's what I used down at the garden center because there were a ton of feral cats down there. And we'd use it like on the top of plant cans. We'd use it in any kind of display area that was a little bit more open, and it worked really, really well. Next video is starting tomato and pepper seeds. And in that, I just went over the basics of starting those two specific types of seeds, went through the supplies that I use and some of the best practices that I've learned throughout the years, and then also shared 4 brand new seeds that Proven Winners is coming out with. Those are the, or not is coming out with, has come out with. They're available on their website now, and they are all varieties I've actually had a chance to plant in my own garden. So I was really excited to actually get them by seeds. Sarah said, when you start seeds, what does it mean when the package says to harden off? So hardening off your plants. So your plants have already grown up a little bit and it's time to plant them outside, but they can't go from inside conditions right out into outside conditions without suffering a little bit of shock. So to harden them off, you can move them outside like at a nice part of the day and leave them out for a couple hours and then bring them back in and kind of gradually increase that time to where they're spending more and more time outside. And this can happen over the process of just a few days. And then that way you've acclimated the plant a little bit to being outside instead of just thrusting it out there and expecting it to survive. Melody said, it may have been asked below, but will these tomatoes and peppers be readily available as plants this summer? I'd love to start seeds, but I just don't have the space. Yes, you should be able to find all 4 of these varieties of plants. Check with your local garden center. I'd start asking them now. So that they can be watching when they make their orders for those specific varieties. And if you don't have a good resource, I know that sometimes it's just really tough for some of you who don't have a really good local garden center. They are going to be available online on Proven Winners website as well. Sophia says, does the heat pad stay on all day and does it have one temperature? Yes and yes. One temperature, and it stays on like 24/7 until those seedlings emerge. And once the seedlings germinate, the heat pad gets taken out. Stephanie said, loving Proven Winners coming out with seeds. Yes, me too. After watching your video, I ordered all 4 seed varieties. Do you know if they're planning on expanding this area to offer more varieties? And I think I could say that the answer is yes. I mean, they're always looking for really stellar varieties, but I don't think it's going to happen very fast because their research process and their like vetting process for plants is intense because they want whatever they offer to offer something different and better than any other variety in its field. And that's why they feel like these 3 tomatoes and 1 pepper have exceeded expectations and have exceeded what other plants, like how other plants have performed, and that's why they're offering those. But they're also offering caladium bulbs this year instead of just by plants, and that's the first time they're offering bulbs as well. It's all exciting stuff. RJ said, are the kits reusable? They look pretty sturdy. And I think he's referring to the seed starting kit. So it has the reservoir and the platform and the seeding tray. I've had a few of those for lots of years and I reuse them every single year. Mary said, if you turn on the grow light, does it warm up the soil so you don't have to use a heat pad? Mine don't. All of my lights are LED, so they actually don't put off a lot of heat. And what seeds need to germinate is heat from underneath. They need that soil to be warm. So a light source from up top, especially if it's a distance away, isn't really going to be warm enough to do much for heating. And the last question on that video was from Austin. Laura, what's your Proven Winners coupon code? I'm trying to order the collection. So there is no coupon code, and we've been working with Proven Winners for a very long time, like five years, Erin? Like quite a long time. And I think maybe in that whole time I've seen them offer a code maybe once, maybe twice. But the whole point and as to why they don't offer a coupon code is that they don't want to be in competition with your local garden center, because they will always tell you and encourage you to shop at your local garden center. And the only reason they sell things online is as a convenience to people who don't have good access or just can't get their hands on that specific variety they want, because there's no way that every single garden center can carry every single plant that's out there, because they are at the mercy too of what the growers are growing and offering for them to buy. So anyway, that's kind of the reason for the coupon code thing. The next video was a succulent tower, and that was a super fun project. It was just a really crummy day outside, and I have a bunch of plants in my plant collection upstairs, and I just thought, what can I do here that would be really fun and beautiful and something different that I've not done before? And I've seen other people do similar things to this and with all kinds of different plants too. So it was just a fun project. Amy said, it seems like in the top pot you didn't actually plant them in the soil, but instead it looked like you just placed or set them in spots where they would fit. If you did in fact just place it rather than having the roots covered by soil, how does that work in keeping the plant alive? I'm terrible with succulents, so I'm curious about how this works. It's really hard to get a view and really see how everything is placed in a pot, but there's always soil packed in around all the root balls of these plants. And if you have succulent cuttings, like some of the cuttings I used in that just had kind of a long stem, and I can tuck them between succulents. As long as that stem makes it a little ways down into the soil, they'll root in and usually do just fine. I mean, there's always occasional one that doesn't take or whatever for whatever reason, but I do try to make sure that every root ball has soil around it, and it's just really hard to see in those types of projects. Donna said, could you please give a source for buying glazed saucers? I wish I could, because they are the best thing I have ever purchased for inside houseplants, because I like terracotta so much. The saucers are junk though inside, because they they seep water because they're porous, but there's the type of saucer, terracotta, that they put a glaze on the inside so no water seeps through them and it doesn't wreck any surface, but it still matches your pot. My parents' garden center has them, and if you call and ask really nicely, they might ship them to you. I don't know how they would arrive though. I don't know how they would pack those. I looked online and could not find any source where they were in stock. They're listed on several websites, but I poured through a bunch of them this morning and couldn't find anywhere to actually order them. So I would just ask your local garden center. Most of the time, wherever they're ordering their terracotta from, I would guess that they could get them in for you. Deanna said, Laura, do you still have the rabbit you did? Yes. Harris is right behind me. That's his name, Harris the hare. He's not looking super hot right now though. I think he's going to need a remodel, and I think I'm going to do something different than sempervivums in him. I had kind of mixed. Most people really liked the way he looked, and I thought he was really fun. Some people thought he looked like he had the mange, which I can kind of see because, yeah. Anyway, so I thought maybe I might do something different growing on him this year. So if you have any suggestions for that, leave it in the comment section down below. Kat says, can regular houseplants be used in this fashion as well? Absolutely, just so long as they have the same water and light requirements so that they're compatible once they're planted together. Harrison, hey Harrison, just said, I just heard of a new idea for drain holes and I want to know your opinion. I heard that you can put fabric in the drain hole to avoid plugging. Would that just plug the hole? I have done this before. I've used old rags before because I've got these iron urns. In fact, there are boxwood topiaries in them up front. They're like a double sphere topiary, and I have a washcloth in the bottom because the holes in those pots are like this big, and I don't know who thought that that was a good idea, but you put soil in that and it just runs out like it's a big funnel. So I do the washcloth, and it does, like, it plugs the hole up enough, but moisture can still drip out, and I've never really had a problem with it. Typically though, I'll use coffee filters, and that works pretty well too. Jessica said, what is the name of the succulent that has the pink flowers? So that, I believe, let me see if it was called Aruba Sunrise. It's a type of kalanchoe, or you could call it a kalancho if you want to be in my pronunciation camp. Let's see. Yeah, I think the variety was the Aruba Sunrise kalanchoe. And the next and last video was on new spring plants. So my parents got their very first load of spring flowers in down at the garden center, and I cleaned out a couple of my containers that still had Christmas arrangements in them and ran down there and got some brand new beautiful things. So I used Hellebores, snowdrops, primrose, and violas in those containers, and it was such a fun project, and they look really pretty. Charlotte said, can you explain a little what you do with the hellebores after they've been in the container? I had a couple of hellebores and had them in the ground all the time. I thought they were perennials. They are perennials, at least they are here in zone 5, and I know that there's quite a number of them that will take zone 4 now too, I believe. But after I'm done with them in the containers, they actually go in the flower bed directly behind me. I've got a little collection going, and I've got somewhere near 30 or maybe a little over 30 varieties. And I've just been slowly adding to that collection, and it's a super fun way to do it is by using them in containers first. You get to enjoy their beauty right up next to your door where you're walking all the time, and then I can pop them out into my collection later, and so I get like 2 different uses out of them, which is awesome. Laura, quick question, would those pear cuttings shoot if you left them in those pots? They might. I'm hoping they'll actually bloom. I think it depends on how warm it gets though. I know that the bottoms of the branches are going to be kept moist enough because I'm watering those containers to keep the flowers happy, that it'll feed the branches for probably quite a while. And then once it warms up, they may burst into bloom, and I think that that would be the most glorious display. And it's awesome too because I had already cut all those branches out of one of our pear trees, and they were just sitting in a pile on the ground. It was a really good way to repurpose and get a little bit more life out of those branches. Suburban Oasis said, the plants won't freeze. When is spring there? Spring is all over the place here. Some years we don't have spring until April, and some years we have spring in January, like this year. Like, I'm sitting outside on February, I don't know what day it is, 10th? And I'm totally comfortable. Like, I'm wearing a coat, of course, but I have shoes on with no socks right now, and I'm totally fine. And I'm planning on working out here today, and so it's just weird. Right now, it looks like our 10-day forecast, we're getting somewhere like close to freezing. We're in the 30s, high 30s-ish. And then the daytime temps are up near 50, like high 40s, 50, 51. It's been a glorious spring, so it just depends from year to year. I do, however, keep pieces of Harvest Guard. It's the harvest material that protects your crops or protects flowers if you have like a shift in temperature. And so I'll keep a couple pieces of those in the house so I can run outside and toss those over the flowers if it's going to be an especially cold night, and that'll help protect them from anything too extreme. But they're also underneath a big overhang. I'm looking at it right now. I don't know how many feet that is, but they're very far underneath a balcony, so they're being protected from that frost anyway. Next question was, what do you do with the used plant material and the used soil? Do you toss them into the compost bin? You know, a lot of times, like all the soil, if it hasn't had any bug issues or disease issues with my plants, we'll take it up somewhere in one of our flower beds or somewhere where it's more open, and we'll just spread it out on the ground and just kind of work it into the area where it's at. If I have been dealing with any kind of really bad insect issue or disease, I toss it because I don't want to perpetuate that problem anywhere in my garden. Dazzle Them For Me said, I didn't see any drip set up for these containers. Do you plan to put something in later on, or do you always hand water those containers? So those containers actually belong in front of our vegetable garden, and I moved them up here because I didn't really have anything better for our Christmas decorations, but I have bought new pots that are on their way right now, and they're going to go right next to, or right in that spot, and those pots will move back out. So I didn't want to run drip and have them locked in place that way. And I will be putting those plants out in our landscape in not that long. So maybe in like 3 months or so, I'll be popping the Hellebores out and putting them in my flower beds, and the violas will go somewhere else. And then I'll get ready for summer plants. And at that point, I will rerun the drip to those pots out where they will stay for the rest of the season. So for now, I'll just hand water, and there's only the 2 that I'm hand watering. And because it's so cool, I'll probably have to water once a week, maybe every 10 days. Angelica said, Laura, where do you get your concrete containers and urns? I know you mentioned it before on one of your videos, but I can't find that video. So the 2 places I get most of my pieces from are from Henry Studio and Unique Stone. And the last question for today is from Creative Gardening. I was just curious if you decide on any budget when you're designing a container. And I think that's a really good question because I see similar questions being asked quite a lot. And I don't decide on a budget for containers as much anymore as I used to. I mean, of course, my parents have a garden center, so I get a very good discount on my plants there, and I'm super thankful for that. And we work with some really good sponsors that help us do a lot of the projects that we do here. But before we did this as a job, I definitely had a budget, and I had to plan, and it was very I had to just be very thoughtful in my choices because I wasn't changing things very often, and I didn't have as many containers to try out as many different things. So, being down at the garden center too and working down there, I saw it all. I saw people that would come in and drop $5,000 in one fell swoop on plants, which that even now, like that's a ton of money. And then I would see another person come in and spend $50 on plants, and that was everything to them. And it was just fun to see the range. And that person that was coming in with the $50 and picking out plants for their containers, it was a really sweet process. I really enjoyed seeing what things that they wanted to try and what new varieties and what things they put together. The whole thing was neat. And my whole goal for what we do now, and we do a lot of projects, but my whole goal is that it would inspire you in some way and be adapted to whatever your situation may be. Maybe it's bigger, you want to do things more grand, bigger containers. Maybe you need to scale it down for your size of home or budget or whatever the case may be. I just hope it's inspiring. And even if you get one little thing, you see one plant that you're like, dang, I love that hellebore. Or I think that viola is the sweetest thing. I'd love to have that in a container somewhere. If that happens, that makes me happy. Or even if you pick up one little tidbit of info like I need to add a slow release fertilizer, or I need to start doing drip or whatever, that makes me feel like I've met our goal as well. So anyway, I think that was a really good question. And that is it for today. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today and watching this video, and we will see you in the next one. Bye.